party's over with. She called me Superman. I'm on my sofa. Boss dog, get him. I sick him and take him home. West Coast. I'm on my
oh shit. Okay, dude. Ready?
Jared James?
Jerry James. Let's call Jared James.
Jared
All
James.
set up.
JJ.
JJ. He's up in Boulder.
Oh,
So we're going to talk to him about the tax vote. That's something I'm going to bring up. And I'm going to talk to him about this article that I was tweeting out yesterday. And there's a new second thing today. Did you see this about the... if you get pulled over for a traffic violation, hope that the cop doesn't think you're clenching your asshole too tight, because you might get tortured by doctors and anally raped. So we're talking about that.
I mean, I was watching, watching videos. There's always...
They took him, dude. They took him to the hospital.
I don't know if I knew about this story, but...
This is just like last week, I think. No, this is January 2nd of this year, but he just filed a lawsuit, I guess, against the hospital and the police officers. When the police officer took, because they thought he was hiding drugs because he was clenching his asshole too much, like that, or something. So somehow he got a search warrant to take this guy to a doctor. The first doctor they went to in the emergency room refused to treat him because they said that it was unethical. So he wasn't going to probe his anus. And so they took him to another medical center where they said they'd do it. And so 8 different times they have, the first time they x-rayed his stomach and they didn't find any drugs. Then they inserted their fingers into his anus, no drugs. Second anus insertion, no drugs, no narcotics. 4th time they penetrated his anus, inserted an enema.
I don't mean to laugh, but were they really?
Yeah, and then he was forced to shit in front of the doctors and the cops. No drugs found.
Okay, so the only
and
first
then he
thing
got
that
another
comes to
enema.
mind is, which is worse? Would you rather have your kids testing like a drug, or like a marijuana, or anything? Because I'm sure it has. Is it marijuana that they're wanting?
Oh, narcotics.
Okay, well, they probably think they smell marijuana. I don't doubt it. But that's all. That's all they have to say. I think you're clenching your asshole. Maybe you have to take a shit.
And what's wrong with clenching your asshole?
Okay, but what I wanted to ask is to these people or anyone, your kids. Is it better to get someone's fingers checking in their assholes, just sticking right up in their assholes, or to try something on their own of their own will that isn't horrible, that isn't traumatizing?
Well, the point here though is specifically the point here is somehow a police officer was legally able to anally rape somebody. And how insane that is that it's 2013 and that's happening right now. So you got to think, like, how many times in the past has that also happened, but you didn't have the internet to blow this shit up? He had 3 enemas performed, and he had to defecate in front of them each time. No drugs. And then the last 7, they x-rayed him. Again, no narcotics. And then at the end, they prepped him for surgery, sedated him, and performed a colonoscopy by sticking a camera up his ass, rectum, colon, and large intestines.
So did he?
And he was protesting the whole time that he doesn't, agree to the search and all this. But
what did he do to get pulled over or whatever the fuck?
He floated a stop sign.
And then that's it. He didn't have any prior.
No.
He's not in.
He said he appeared to be clenching his buttocks.
That's it.
Yeah. And he thought that was probable cause enough to suspect that he was hiding narcotics.
I'm clenching my buttocks right now.
Let's do this.
I'm clenching my butt.
Let's call Jared. Let's ask what he thinks.
For the past 20 seconds. It's not comfortable. Maybe he was squirming.
Jared.
Hello?
Jared.
Hey, what's up?
Are you there, man?
I am here.
This is Andrew. This is Joel
How's it
here
going?
too in the room.
Cheers, Jared.
Do you do video?
Cheers.
Are you
I am drinking some kombucha tea. I don't know if it's cheersable, but...
Well,
Oh shit.
it definitely is. Definitely.
Nice.
He's down here. I don't know if you can see us. Yeah.
I
Got
can
the
see that.
relaxed chair.
We've got you here as a little paper mache Day of the Dead dude. So
Nice.
is that your real picture? Is that actually
Yeah,
who you are?
how does my video not come on? Oh, here we go.
We have similar
I thought it
glasses.
just come up.
No, I'm always curious to see, like, on Twitter, you never know, right? And people like to use pictures that may or may not be them, or who knows.
Yeah, I like to try to keep it updated because like a year ago, I had like hair down to my shoulders, so it's easy to get out of date. That's for sure.
Oh, wow, yeah. Hey, we were at, speaking of hair down to your ass, we were talking about, did you read that article of the cop pulling over the dude for floating the stop sign, and then he got a search warrant to search his anus for narcotics?
I did skim that article. I saw that. Yeah.
And we got to the end, which is where they stuck the actual camera up his ass, and just because someone thought he was clenching his ass while he's sitting in a car. And it seems like total insanity, and it seems like an obscene nightmare, but it's like, if you can internalize the humanity that was in a way lost, and the humanity that actually made that happen, if you can understand those details, like, then you understand how horrendous all the other bullshit is.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's NSA surveillance or, you know, keep going on the list, but how does this fucking stop? You know what I mean? Like, why is there not consciousness to that kind of behavior? Or is there? I don't know.
Yeah. No. Did you by chance watch the recent Rogan podcast with Sam Harris?
Yeah.
One of his newest one.
Yeah, I'm almost through it, so I watched most of it.
All right. Well, there's a concept in there that Sam Harris talks about that I really love, and it's about how our obvious reaction is to like put blame toward the officer or the police department or whatever, whatever it is. But I think the more rational approach to something like that is to understand that like we've created a system that is broken and the incentives don't work, right? And when you like have these skewed incentives, you get, and then it, just like any other natural distribution too, like there's usually 80% of the people are kind of decent, and then 10% of them suck, and then 10% of them are really great, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna get the 10%. So like, if your system's fucked up, the 10% that are terrible are gonna be so bad. And then, in a lot of these the worst cases is when the 80% are still doing terrible, doing bad things too, just because the system is the way it is. And my biggest thing that I always come down to is like, I like to endlessly analyze things, and the deeper you go, I think it just always comes down to money. I just feel like it's this like terrible abstraction of how we need to be interacting with people, and it had its purpose in the old days, but our technology is to the point now where it's antiquated technology. Like we don't need it anymore. Things like Bitcoin and shit like that are showing us that like. And I can definitely see Bitcoin turning into more of a social currency too. So it's less on this monetary value, and what you're contributing lets you, take back from.
It's hilarious because Wired just did I don't know if you'd call it an editorial, but his Wired staff, wrote an article advocating for making Bitcoin more centralized. And I'm going like, what the fuck? Are you serious? Like we may actually have the start of something halfway decent, and now you're advocating the actual problem as some sort of solution. Like, I guess this is how it starts. We've all been there before.
Yeah. And then as soon as you get the centralized anything, suddenly people have interests, and then things get fucked up because of money again.
Yeah, well, and you can look at it too, like in societies though, even where money technically didn't exist, like say the Soviet Union, and then it just power ends up becoming the proxy. And I think that's always like an argument going back and forth, like, is it money exclusively or is it power? And it seems like in the end, people with lots of money still can't stand up to someone who actually has control of the power, like the physical power or the brute power. So you have nuclear weapons and you're some sort of sheik with $1 billion. You can buy nuclear weapons, but if you've already got 100,000 of them, and you're not profit seeking, by definition,
Yeah.
that's just as crazy.
Oh yeah, I think it's
Which comes back to consciousness, I think.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of times people talk about like what are the core human aspects that we can't avoid, and obviously there's going to be bad ones and good ones, right? And the question is, I guess, if we live in a system where we have all of our basic needs met, like safety and everything like that, I don't know, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs type thing, Are you familiar?
Yeah.
So if you have all these basic needs met and you're not living in a place of scarcity, like what does a human being in that environment, surrounded by human beings in that environment, what do they act like? And I don't know, I mean, I guess one of the interesting concepts that I like to latch onto just because it's optimistic is, to take a look at some of our related species. And there's been, like the bonobo chimp is very similar to us, as equally as similar as the chimpanzee, but they live in these like really, really peaceful matriarchal societies with like a lot of affection and like pretty much they just have sex all the time. Like it sounds awesome. Like I want to be a bonobo.
It was funny though because I think I heard even Sam Harris was discussing something and tying it, to our closest relative, but it was one of the negative chimp stereotypes that's used to put kind of a box or a limitation on human behavior. It's always funny, like, even if that was like the basis for our emotional craziness or our physical violence, we can still consciously observe that it's not the most awesome thing. And so even regardless, but people use that as an excuse. But then, like you said, bonobos are there, and they're just as close, and they're the exact opposite. And actually, in a certain way, they're like we should be acting, which is not being a fucking, asshole to other people, physically especially. Yeah,
and I guess one of the arguments that I've heard, too, about, like, why the bonobos act so much different than the chimpanzees is, I'm not super well read on this, but it was my impression from God knows who they, that the bonobos actually lived in really like easygoing geographic locations with like abundance of food and like very, so they had a lot of their basic needs met, whereas like chimpanzees, and I watched a few documentaries too, like they usually live in areas where food and like territory is pretty scarce, and so they like fight with each other and to be competitive, you have to like promote all of these very aggressive, testosterone-driven, incentives, and then you get what the chimpanzees have, which is like a really hostile environment. And then to go even further too, there's actually a Radio Lab. You guys watch or listen to Radio Lab podcast every once in a while?
Not very often. I think like once or twice maybe.
Yeah, there's an old, I think the podcast name was Altruism, and it talked about how there was this troop of chimpanzees that was living on this island that started getting colonized by people, and the chimps started just hanging out at the dumpsters behind one of the local, food joints and stuff like that. So all of a sudden they started living in this place where like there was no need for them to like find food and fight for it. And so like it changed the whole troop's mentality within like a short period of time, where all of the males started like grooming each other and shit, which like never happens. And they just kind of hung out and just like played around and ate food all day long and didn't, it was very, very non-competitive and, promoting a lot of the same things you see in the bonobos.
Well, but it's funny because there's actually like case studies they have kind of shown the exact opposite, where once you introduce something that could be considered like a form of like an asset to be accumulated, so like two different types of fruit, and I can't remember what they used, but it was like, you know, the first one they put out, like they'll eat it just fine, but the second one they put out is like much better, and so now there's a preference between two things, and then there becomes like this insane chimp competition to hoard the better thing. And I don't know if this is the same study, but it seems like it would just relate to it all. And then when there's one chimp that everybody wants to fuck, they'll hoard it even more, and they'll go give that to that sexy chimp to have sex with her. And they'll actually pay her for sex. So, you know, like, that's where I just think that, I think that all the things are possible, you know, like the various ways, but until, like, at the root consciousness level, people just agree that I can't initiate violence onto another human being, period. I cannot be the initiator of that. And that's a real simple step to take, which has a lot of seemingly positive outcomes. But people have a really hard time of actually doing it. I don't know why, because we still have violence and war and all that kind of shit. And because then people can still have power, but they just won't use it coercively. That would be idealistic, but I think that's the concept, because otherwise, it's almost inevitable, if you're not controlling human interaction, that it's just basic kind of systems network. You're going to have these interactions happening. Certain interactions are going to be more efficient. They're going to accumulate just more whatever they're trying to accumulate, because they can do it better than other people. And so you're always going to have some sort of inequality of sorts, I think, because you can't guarantee equal output in a decentralized system.
Yeah, no, I think the power thing is interesting, and I do think there's like innate nature of humans just to like want power or influence or whatever it is, right? Mating is probably a big part of it, but so I guess the interesting thing is, could you create a system and basically hack the system to make sure that the way to acquire the fame and the power is to be good at something and be contributing, you know? So like I see, and we see it right now too, you know, we like idolize all of our musicians and actors and things like that, and artists, and that's the type of things that people should be idolized for the things that they're contributing to society, as opposed to, you know, hoarding a bunch of wealth so that you have influence, but you got it through some other means that doesn't really mean anything about you or your contribution.
It's hilarious. We had this conversation, essentially, my wife and I, before we started recording this evening, like over dinner, and because we were talking about how, I guess maybe it's kind of, we stopped the Sam Harris podcast, and then we kind of went off onto this tangent. It went into this kind of discussion, and because it came back to that honesty conversation they had, and about lying, and how, I guess that's his new book, which I'm kind of excited to check out, and how so many problems happen in a individual's life because they can't be honest, and the lying and the outcomes. And then we started talking about how you see that too with wealth accumulation. There's a difference between, like, because I know plenty of them, really cool ass entrepreneurs who are just simply following their passion, and they're creating some sort of awesome something, and other people love it, and because other people love it, they get rewarded for it, and it's win-win. Like, it's super positive. That's different than someone, like, from the get-go, their only drive is to accumulate the wealth. Yeah. And then there's no meaning really to it.
No, yeah. And the thing that's so exciting right now is that I think the amount of transparency and ease of communication is making it so much easier for you to understand, and a lot now, like, it's not the brand that you're trying to understand, it's the founder. You know, like these big pivotal companies, everybody knows who runs them.
Yeah,
Everybody knows
yeah.
Steve Jobs, they know Sergey Brin, they know Larry Page, they know Elon Musk. You know, they know the person that founded it, and the reason people resonate is because their motivation isn't the money. And those are the companies that are like changing everything. So the Walmarts will be around where, you know, they just literally all they care about is profit. But I think they're in for a disruption because it's going to be apparent that their motivations are not good.
Well, and at some point, because if you allow market interactions to happen, even if you don't like the way someone's doing it, as long as it's not coercive in nature, then all of a sudden, if consciousness is increased in individuals, if everybody has an ego reset, one night at the same time, then the next day, bullshit starts to become bullshit, way more obvious. And so here, if this is like a half-dead company, and so a Walmart, like, I purposely choose to not go into Walmart because I don't ever have good interactions or experiences. Ever. I just don't. If I did, I'd go there. But I don't get anything positive from it. No positive energy at all. But when I go to certain local spots that we kind of curate for ourselves, you do get to know them, you get to have those interactions, and you're purposely, I look at it like I am part of the reward system to these people. Like, I love the business you're running, or if all the people working there are super cool and nice and honest, and but if you let that consciousness bubble up, then people will start changing their decisions.
What do you mean by the building up of the consciousness?
Like conscious understanding of, like, say, just positive human interactions. Okay. And how, like, if you're a dead company that has no real soul or life or character, so there's no honesty in your corporation, so everybody who shows up every day to work at your corporation, they've been around these fucks. You can't talk the way you actually talk. You can't be who you actually are, and you can't have any opinions that anyone disagrees with, because it becomes so bureaucratic at a point that it's just as politically correct as any governmental institution, and then there's no autonomy. Like, autonomy becomes destroyed, and that's what's happened with Walmart, because at Walmart's core, when Sam Walton started it in Arkansas, I know this because I'm from Oklahoma, so I know all about Walmart. Sam Walton's a badass dude, man. Like, I love Sam Walton.
Well, and his motivation was different than what it is now, too.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and that's kind of like the point. And there was a transition. And Sam Walton drove his beat-up pickup truck, to the day he died, even though he's a billionaire. And because that's just who he was. And when he started that business, and no other business in America accepted a return, and then he just said, you know what, you don't like what you buy, bring it the fuck back, I'll give your money back. People don't even, no one can even comprehend what that meant. Like, are you serious? I've been at Walmart even, like, in the past 10 years, and I've seen people bring back half-eaten packs of meat, food, things are destroyed. So, anyway. But I think that you gotta allow people to develop into that better place, and then voluntarily start making these better decisions. And if there's a new demand for, like, better human-based businesses and services and products, you're gonna get it.
Totally. I think that's the way things are going. It's those companies that are putting that stuff out, they're going to start succeeding more and more. And, all these Goliaths of our past are just going to start fading away because they can't adjust. Unless they can do it through leadership if they got someone in there who is, embrace some of this stuff. But it's scary. That's why, like, Apple right now, I'm super scared because, like, I don't think he, like, thought he was gonna die, and then when he did, when he was gonna die, he was probably like, well, shit, I guess I gotta put my finance guy in charge of my company because he's the only person that's reliable enough. But, like, I'm pretty sure if he was around for longer, his successor would have been, embody a lot more of his, like, purpose.
But I think someone could try to imitate him, but it seems pretty obvious that no one could ever really be that individual, especially if they're not saying LSD is one of the most important experiences they've ever had in their life.
Yeah, no, I just think that, yeah, and it doesn't have, they don't have to have the exact same message as him or motivations, but just as long as, like, we know that it's not to appease your shareholders.
Yeah.
Then I'm down. Like, if it's like, hey, let's make some, you know, I don't know. What's, I guess, Johnny Ives is an example. A lot of people say that he might be a good successor, right? And he was a big design guy. So, like, his purpose of running the company is, like, creating the most rewarding user experiences as possible. Like, that's a good purpose. I'm down. More so than, you know, making a buck.
Yeah.
But who knows? We'll see.
But there are practical purposes at a certain level to someone seeing the opportunity to make a buck in human interactions, like, so direct. So if, for instance, it's just like some dude all of a sudden wants to become an entrepreneur who has nothing, and he sees an opportunity to bring this product from this one place that's cheap to another place where maybe it's cheaper than something else, exclusively to make the money. Well, because the people are voluntarily giving that money to that guy instead of those other people, like, that's a win-win. That customer's happier than they were because they got something a little cheaper. This guy now has money when he didn't have money to feed his family. I mean, I know, like, I've seen this on a personal level because we used to have a international trade company, and we were talking before we started about Mexico. And so we would travel for a few months every year all over Mexico, buying from, like, individual artisans, people making shit, and Day of the Dead stuff. And so, see, I got this. I have a whole collection, but this is this guy. Yeah,
Nice.
He's kind of sitting in for you, theoretically.
It's close enough.
But you can see people, like, obviously a lot of the people we work with are, like, real, they would call themselves an artisan, but there were other people that, you know, they just saw other people being artists making money, and they're in the middle of nowhere living in abject poverty, and said, hey, I can make some money from these tourists or these, you know, businesses or these trade people coming down to buy this shit. And when you're in that kind of level where your house is made out of Mexican juice boxes, the Humex boxes, like, that's for real. And I've been in that house, but I've been in that house and that person was really content and seemed to not really give a shit that they were living in this juice house, you know. Because to them, they were still being creative and expressing and productive, but they were also still making money too. And that was very important to them.
Yeah, I mean, there's levels of, I just see, there's levels of interaction, and there's, you know, at that base level, if you're providing a service that makes people's lives easier, like, it's going to be a rewarding experience. But, you know, that might be, you know, that's like the McDonald's cheeseburger of the thing, and every once in a while you want to go out and have some fine dining, and if you can afford it, you'll probably do that more often, you know.
Yeah, I think I had my kind of rule of thumb, like, on a product or a service, and I purposely try to avoid commercials at all costs. So anyway, I don't watch TV. If I watch something, it's because I've already chosen it ahead of time, like, say, just something on Netflix, or it's a movie or some show, or something on the internet. But if for some reason commercials come on, if the commercial, or same thing on internet commercials too, if they don't have anything to do with the actual product or service, and why that's awesome, like in some sort of objective fashion, trying, then you know that the whole thing's bullshit. And the case study, like Bill Hicks always talked about, was like beer commercials, you know, on the Super Bowl. When was the last time you saw Budweiser, you know, actually advertise how great their beer is? They don't, and they can't, because no one thinks it is.
Yeah.
I mean, well, maybe. I'm a Miller, so. But which is funny, when I go to Mexico across the border, everyone's drinking Miller Lite. I don't know.
Man.
I don't know. But like I said, since I'm a Miller, like, I can't say no. And they're like, "Hey, Miller," and we're like, "All right, Miller." And we drink whiskey and Miller Lite in Mexico, and I'm like, "Why can't we drink, like, Dos Equis and lots of tequila?" But anyway, it's weird. Where were you going down to Mexico? You said.
I got my girlfriend's friends getting married down there, so we're going to like resorty, like near Cancun or something like that. I don't know.
How dare you? How dare you?
I'm gonna be on a beach reading and writing for a week, so.
Well, that's funny because we have our friends are going down there too. Yeah, we used to live in Playa del Carmen years back now, and we've been down there 10 times. I don't know, 10 summers, and Tulum's awesome. So you've never been at all?
I have not. That's
Okay.
where we're going, Tulum, I think. I believe that is where we're going.
Oh, that's good news. So there's a couple like there's nothing like ridiculous Cancun resort in Tulum. So if
good.
it's in Tulum,
Well, yeah,
you'll be.
and we're not staying at a resort either. We got like a house, so that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, even better. You need to look up one. It's called what is it?
The Italian
Margarita.
restaurant?
Yeah. Right.
You're
Posada
gonna,
Margarita?
you're gonna have
Okay.
some real Italian food, sir.
Yeah, it's
Write this down.
maybe it's Posada Margarita and Posada Margarita. It's supposed to be Italian, and it is Italian because Europeans and Italians in particular flock to it's called the Mayan Riviera, and that's that coast along the peninsula that the coral reef runs on. And so the waters are like so nice, and Tulum in particular is one of the best spots because it's not overdone and processed and tourists and cruise ships and all that shit. And but Posada Margarita, you can stay there for the night. They have rentals, but it's on the beach. But the Italian guy, we've been going there for 10 years, maybe 8 years, and he's a cool ass dude, and he just makes food. So you'll go in there, and he'll say, "What? You just want the dinner?" And there was no menu. It's just, "Do you want dinner?" And then, well, like, "What wine do you want?" And then he just brings you the plate. You don't ask. There's
It's the
no
best place in the world.
Yeah, right. It's
That's
fucking
awesome.
amazing.
Tulum, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, where else are you gonna go? Fuck everything else.
Yeah, we had.
It's. I'm interested actually in Colorado and Tulum, Mexico. And
Yeah.
it's funny that you're going there for a wedding because we are too. In Tulum.
Yeah.
We won't go to Cancun. That's fucking
No.
like Miami. Fuck that
Dude,
shit.
those fucking gringos ruin that
Yeah.
place.
I think the only thing we're going to be doing that will be touristy is we're going to go see some of the ruins.
No, dude, that's not like.
Yeah,
there'd be-
it's worth it. It's you got to fucking do that.
Yeah, they're amazing. You need to go to. I mean, they're all amazing for sure, but Coba, C-O-B-A, it's the only ruin I think in the Yucatan that pops up above the. Like you can climb to the top and see above the jungle tree line.
Okay.
Because in Chichen Itza, you can go to the top and it's really tall, but it's cleared out, all around the ruins. So this one more like pops up and you don't see anything else. And it's like a really cool ass view. When we walked last time, it was so just raw and authentic that we were just walking and there's like this lagoon. Oh shit, there's fucking like crocodiles or I don't know what, alligators, crocodiles. Just right there, and there's a Mexican dude just going, some little Mayan dude just like, it's cocodrilos, what are you going to do? He doesn't care.
Dude, it's going to be great.
So you go there and get that Italian food. You'll love it. I mean, it may sound weird, but this is a perfect example of kind of what we're talking about, where, at some point in the past, and this happened to us too, because we have long-term plans and shit for Tulum in particular, but, some Italian guy goes there, and we knew a German guy that this happened to as well. And when they're in this part of Mexico, first of all, Mexico is like one of the most beautiful places on the world, like the people, the food, and all the cities. But you go there and you go, I'm more at home here than I've ever been in Germany or in Italy. And these people just love it. And so they go be part of this new community, the society, and they start bringing their expression to it. And it's this like amazing Italian restaurant on the beach cooking up, fish that was just brought in that day. And it's weird. Maybe on the outside it seems strange, but when you get there, you'll totally understand. Hey, and then what's the place where they have the guy with the guitar? Where we got the Coco Locos. Samas, Z-A-M-A? Yeah, Z-A-M-A. And that's on the beach. And there's a little like inlet. And what?
Z-A-M-A-S.
Oh, Z-A-M-A-S. Zamas, yeah. I'm looking you up.
Dude, this is good. I'm like loaded up. I'm gonna know everything.
On the evenings, they'll do like music, and they had. I think these guys are there quite often because we talked to them afterwards. They're super cool. One guy playing, what was it, acoustic, and what was the other guy playing trumpet? But it was kind of this old school French style. I mean, super, super good.
Well, I wasn't there for that one, but I saw the video.
Oh yeah, that was that other summer.
Really
that was
good.
this past summer.
That's the thing. It's like the most exotic place in the world.
Yeah. But then we start talking to this guy, and it's like, oh shit, he's the son of this dude we know that my wife knows in San Antonio. And you're like, where the fuck did you? Who are you?
What?
Like, what are you? Just out of nowhere. And so, but people are so cool. That's my point. That you can have these. It just started from saying, you're amazing, man. You're playing this music that's awesome. And I'm on the beach and the sounds and the sea turtles and whatever the fuck's going on. And like, it's such a good mood and everyone's in such a good attitude. Okay, what's the salsa one? Zebra?
Zebras.
Yeah, okay. La Zebra, zebra, but Spanish zebra. And they do salsa, live salsa music.
All right.
Real deal fucking salsa. Have you ever danced salsa? No.
I have. Yeah, I have.
Okay, so yeah, you'll know what's going on. But the people there are so real because the locals show up too. And they break it the fuck down. It's awesome. And then the Tulum ruins for sure you gotta go see. Highly recommended.
Kobo was the one, right?
And Kobo the other one. But Mezzanini is it's kind of a little boutique hotel. We'll stay at this one a lot of times when we go visit, but they have this kind of deck. They're not on the sand. There's like a rock face, which is not real common, and so they have this deck that kind of overlooks this rock face and the ocean, and so you can hook it up with. This sounds crazy too. There's a Thai restaurant in this hotel, but they make stuff like
what?
Like a lot of Thai food is very similar to Mexican food. Like tamarindo is used, like Vietnamese food too, and cilantro and chiles, and so some of the flavors are not too off. But it's all like seafood stuff, so it's all fresh. My point is,
That's La Zebra.
yeah, that's La Zebra. That's it. And
oh, dude, I'm so excited for this.
when you're eating that dinner, if you go out for dinner, it's the most picture perfect. They've got like little hammocks that you can swing in, and but if not, you go there for happy hour. It's the best happy hour in Tulum. It's 2 for 1, like of all their margaritas, and I'm a big tequila snob.
You're a big happy hour snob.
I'm a happy hour snob
You're the
too.
happy hour go-to guy.
This is the mezzanine, right?
Yeah.
The way
Alright.
you could start something.
I put a
with that.
star next to that one because I love me some Thai food.
Yeah, I think you'll love. We'll have to. Oh, hey, your audio's out. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
Oh, there you
Can
go.
you hear me?
Yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
what happened. What'd you say?
No, I don't know.
The Thai, you like Thai food? I
Oh,
guess.
Thai food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thai food.
What, man, dude? Something's happening. Hang on. Is that me? Let's see. Are you there? Can you hear me? Yeah. No.
Yeah, I can hear you. You are kind of slowing down a little bit, though.
Slowing down.
Oh well, whatever. We'll figure it out.
We'll begin.
So yeah,
Thai
I think
food.
you looked it up. The other thing to hit, dude. I've got all. I mean, you're only there for a week. Is that what you said?
A week, yeah.
Okay.
Well, 7 days, though. That's a long time.
That's good. Okay, so I'll give you a couple other spots, and you can look them up and see what you think. Yeah. Oh, and they run. There's a couple good message boards too. Tulum. I think it's Tulum.info. But I've been using this for like how many years now? 12 years. The boards, and they had some pretty good insight. Just if you want to like just whatever, get extra info. If you have time to go to, what's the name of the lagoon in Tonka? We'll remember in a second. The town is called Tonka. It's T-A... No, that's Akumal. Sorry. Jesus, there's so much stuff. Go to... I'm going to look this up for you. There's this lagoon, and it's in I want to say Akumo. Let's see, Akumo. But I can't remember the name of the lagoon. You go to the lagoon, you pay a couple of bucks and rent snorkel stuff, and...
Oh, okay. Snorkeling was on our to-do
What
list
is it?
for sure.
I'm getting help from my Mexican.
Do you have a beard? Let me see. Do you have a beard?
No.
You can't snorkel if you have a beard. I'm proof
good
of
call,
that.
yeah.
I wasn't gonna shave,
Oh, really?
and now next time I'm going, I will shave.
Oh,
It
y'all cool.
Sucks without. I
Okay.
mean, you can't do it with the beard.
It's not technically in Akumal City, but anyway, that's how you enter to it. But it's called Yalku. Yalku. It's YAL-KU. So it's kind of it's supposed to be Mayan word. And if you pull up on Google Maps, you can see the lagoon. Dude,
Okay.
you can snorkel and it's amazing, and you can snorkel out into the ocean from the lagoon too, and you'll see the most tropical, amazing fish you've ever seen. All the shit from like cartoons and movies. But I'm snorkeling, and then all of a sudden I look down, I see the sand start moving, and I'm like, the water's pretty shallow, so I might be 3 feet up, 4 feet up, and there's a fucking like giant ass stingray rippling its edges. And
Could've
putting
got
up the
stung
right,
out,
yeah.
dude.
And that was like the year
Could've been
before.
like that guy.
Yeah, it was like the year
Animal
before he
Planet
died
guy.
or something. And I remember when that happened, I like had all these crazy ass flashbacks thinking I was gonna die. But you see really cool shit.
You've
Is the point?
been almost killed a few times.
Yeah, I have almost been killed a few
Fucking
times.
gangster.
Well, one
By
other
stingrays?
yeah, well that's stingray, and then down there in Mexico too, we were snorkeling and we hit a like whirlpool. Because, you know, the Yucatan, when it was hit by the meteorite, there's no, like, natural bodies of water. And because everything tunnels underneath it. And so you have these cenotes, but they're like springs. So there's no, like, rivers in particular. And the soil is, you can't really grow things all that great there either. So you can go in these underground caves and caverns. Which one was, Dos Ojos is one of them. So if you like adventure snorkel, you can take these amazing claustrophobic snorkeling trips all through these underground caves and tunnels. And we did it, but I'm not the best. I'm like with claustrophobia, and
Oh, yeah, I don't think I could do it.
my wife started breathing real loud, and it's just you're just right here, and only your snorkel can reach out. And there's like all are they stalactites or hanging down, the big spikes, rock spikes. So you can't put your head up. You'll stab yourself. So she starts breathing hard.
God.
Then I start breathing hard, and I start freaking out, and she's freaking out. And we barely, seriously, like, I was on the edge of life and death because once claustrophobia hits, it feeds on itself. And then we finally made it. We were only a few feet away, luckily, to this giant open cavern with a one blue light, shining through, kind of like in an Indiana Jones movie or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, you can do that, or you can go in the lagoon. It's not as claustrophobic.
Yeah, no, and I'll do the lagoon, but that shit would freak me out. Especially water, too. Like, if it was, like, just a cave, that's one thing, but water, I'd definitely hyperventilate.
Yeah, it's not fun. It doesn't feel good to know that you're in that position. The other thing I was going to say is these natural spring bodies, they're called cenotes. That's CENOTE. And I'm going to recommend one because you're down in Tulum, and this is the one we tend to go back to a lot. It's called Gran Cenote, GRAN. And it's a few kilometers north, more or less, of Tulum. So you can take a cab there really easy, and if you even have bikes.
We'll have a car.
Yeah, or your car, and super easy to get to. And it's super easy to drive around in there too. So, but that cenote is awesome. You're gonna love it. It's mind-blowing how just amazing it is, and you won't want to leave. That's all I'm trying to tell you. So
I haven't had like a real vacation for so long. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good.
Dude, you just made me
definitely
really happy that.
That's a real vacation.
Yeah,
That's
super real.
the best. I mean, I hope I make it next year.
Well, when is in March? I guess we're gonna go down in March.
April or May? March.
And we were actually trying. I mean, I how'd you book your house? Did you just do it from some?
I have no idea. My girlfriend did everything.
She hooked it all up. Yeah, because there's with like Airbnb, there's so many, so much easier access to house rentals. Because back in the day, it was hard to coordinate some of this stuff, 10 years ago. And it's fascinating how easy and cheap it is now.
Yeah, we actually stayed in the Airbnb in New York City last weekend. It was the first time I've actually used it. And it was,
really?
Cool. Yeah.
What what part of the city did you get in?
We were in the East Village, some
nice.
tiny little Ukrainian block. It was pretty sick. It's way better too than like being in the hotel-y area where it's like so touristy. So it felt cool. We were in the thick of that little neighborhood.
That's awesome. I just I think it was maybe it was Reason actually had an article about just now New York City. Those big hotels are lobbying hard and they're looking to try to pass some sort of ban on people renting their homes, and it's like New York City's so fucking expensive to stay in, because when we lived in DC we were going up there all the time, and Airbnb, I can't remember the numbers, but the amount of money, the differential is enormous. And like you said, I mean, you liked it. Did you actually get a private spot or a private flat or something?
Yeah, we got like this tiny little studio. It was cool. It was just like a bed and a couch and then a kitchen, and it was like that was it.
Yeah,
it worked.
Sweet. That is sweet. I love that. I love that. That stuff in Uber. Are you familiar with Uber?
Yeah.
Like those type of things. Once again, go back to what we were talking at the beginning. Like awesome ways to kind of almost help people connect better. Because now, like, if for instance you went to someone's house that maybe you were just getting a room, or maybe they had a couple condos, and maybe you met them or something, like there's a human connection there. And when we go travel in Europe in particular, we're always staying, in Airbnb type places, and so you get to connect with the owner, and they're always so awesome and so nice, and that informs now my opinion of Italians. Because I got to meet a lot of amazing, like, nice, like, just people you wish there were more of, in other words. And at the hotel, you don't get that at all.
Yeah, I feel like renting your place out, you got to be a certain type of person that's, like, kind of open to, interacting with people. Like, that you wouldn't become, it attracts a certain type of person. So it makes sense that it would be, because I've never heard anyone say something bad about an Airbnb experience.
Yeah, I haven't either.
It's like every single time they're like so awesome.
Well, and what the fuck, dude? When we went to Boulder last February, March.
It was so great. We got a hot tub.
Yeah, we didn't use the hot tub, but we had. But it was right 2 blocks north of Pearl Street.
We walked to see the Big Boy show.
We went to the Big Boy show at
the
theater.
The theater.
Nice.
Is it the State Theater? Is that what it is? No, not State. What is that?
I don't know, but
just
I'm
the main old theater right there.
No, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. On Pearl, though, right?
Yeah, like right there off 1 block, I think. And
How is Boulder? I mean, is it okay these days?
Yeah, what do you think? Yeah, how's everything? Yeah, everything.
So I actually don't hang out in Boulder a ton. I live in like the thick of downtown Denver, like right next to Union Station, and work down here too. So like, I mean, I don't even really get in my car very often. It sits in our garage for 5 days at least. We go to groceries with the car, but yeah, we make it down there every once in a while. But mostly in Denver. I mean, I need to be spending more time in Boulder, but it's tough.
What?
Well, I guess I'm sorry. I was wondering too, with like all the
flooding and shit.
With all the damage that everywhere in Colorado, all that shit, man, that was crazy. People were like stuck in the hills, or is this the same? Like it was, and then I got I turned the news off for about a month, and then I Just ask this guy, like, what's new? What's happening in the news? But
no, yeah, it was weird. So actually, I guess this kind of connects it to. I launched my business just the beginning of October, and in my business, whatever the whole model is, just to work with a new charity each month, and then if people donate to that dollar to that charity, they get deals from the sponsors. And the funny thing is I actually got my sponsor earlier in maybe a month or so before the flood happened, and they are a volunteer organization. And so then once the flood happened, they ended up being out here. So I went to this town called Evans that got hit pretty hard. That's, it's a total little burb. And we went into some neighborhood that was just totally destroyed, and it was unreal. I mean, just everything. And all they had to do was just go into the house and just throw everything out, and there's just big piles of everybody's belongings in the middle of the street, destroyed. It was insane. But Boulder, and I guess the reason they were at Evans too is because a lot of these smaller towns that nobody's heard of got hit pretty bad.
Yeah.
But all this relief dollars and organizations and stuff like that were all going to Boulder. So I actually heard that they were kind of oversaturated with volunteers there, whereas some of the other places were suffering, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is.
But yeah, so it was weird. It was definitely a unique experience walking through a little hellhole.
Are you born and raised then in Colorado?
Yeah, I grew up in northern Colorado, kind of by Fort Collins. So.
Do you feel like you're? I guess you wouldn't know. Here's the answer. I feel like you're more of a free citizen of this country than I am. And you don't know maybe that you feel more free, but I feel like you I don't know, Colorado is, it's fucking awesome. It's great. We went and the air was great. The air was great. That's what's one thing about it. The air is even nice. So, but you're freer out there. You guys actually can grow marijuana. You can have it. You can, in January 1st, you can go buy it. You're 25%, right? Taxing, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you're freer, sort of, than I am, just so you know.
No, yeah, I think Colorado is, when I was younger, growing up here, obviously you always rebel, so I was like, I can't wait to grow up and move into New York or going to LA or whatever. San Francisco, not LA. Scratch that.
Yeah, not LA.
But yeah, no. The older I get, every year, I'm like, and the more places I visit, I'm like, God, I really do love Colorado.
Oh man,
it's a really big place.
It is.
Yeah.
No,
go ahead.
No, yeah, it's nice. We live right downtown, and literally we can hop in our car and in an hour be skiing. So it's just hard to find that. And yeah, like you said, first place. I feel very honored to have voted for legalization of marijuana, and I think it will be. I was telling my girlfriend when it happened, I was like, we'll be telling our kids about this when we're older. This is a pivotal thing. The beginning of the end of the prohibition. So
yeah, you're totally right, and the opposite will also be true. Where not the opposite, but as grandparents, you're gonna have to explain people who didn't vote for it. We're gonna have to explain why humans were tossed into cages for consuming anything of their own choice. Anything. Because the next step is to actually evolve to an understanding of the harm of prohibition, period, of any drug, any plant, any fungus. And once we get to that point, then we can truly have real drug education. So we teach people how to use the drugs properly and safely, whether you're going to use them or not. Just like you should know how to have sex properly and safely, even if you choose not to have sex because you think it's too much of a risk. Like, period. But in America, we're so far from both of those ideals, and to me at least, and I think we're moving there, but man, we have a fucking long ways to go still.
Yeah, I mean,
you're going to get put in prison for a mushroom still,
know.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, it's, well, shit, they grow naturally, man. I worked with a girl, her dog was on one of her, like, horse barns, and ingested a bunch of mushrooms on accident, and it was, like, tripping his balls off for, like, 2 days. And they had to take it in because it, like, was running into walls and stuff.
That's awesome.
But if you did that, they'd put you in jail.
I know.
Like, whoa.
Like, it was only a few years ago that I don't, my background's like economics and trade and business and as a course of study, and so when it comes to like hard sciences, I tend not to be super detailed in my understanding, but only a few years ago, and I might just be one of the more ignorant people around, I had no idea that there's an entire like mycelium layer that surrounds the entire globe, period. It's an actual layer, just like a layer of the crust in geology. And that's where mushrooms come out of. So it only requires certain conditions in the environment, and mushrooms will show up everywhere.
Yeah, no, I think there's a TED Talk about how mushrooms will save the world, and it's like the amount of different uses that they have is unbelievable. Like, we could use it for everything. Like, you can make a form of like styrofoam for packing out of it. Like, it's super reusable. It like decomposes our bodies like really well, and like gets rid of all the nasty shit that we've ingested throughout our lives. Instead of like doing this weird thing where we embalm ourselves and put our useless flesh into a little coffin that doesn't get to reintegrate. Like, it's mushrooms are amazing.
Have you seen that? There's actually mushrooms too that can decompose and process oil, like so in an oil spill type situation. And they're looking at mushrooms to eat up the Pacific garbage patch as well.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because I don't know. There's just so many different kinds of mushrooms.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
so
it's crazy.
I was gonna raise that mushrooms were all poisonous and all bad. And like, you just need to stomp on them. You need to get rid of them. They're not good at all. And but on top of that, I don't think anyone's really ever raised with any kind of conscious understanding of mushrooms. I've never met that person where their family had an understanding of just basic mushrooms, like maybe they have an understanding of growing tomatoes or some sort of garden plant or flowers or tree.
Yeah.
No one ever talks mushrooms. I don't know. Did you ever come across people that are like, they just know a lot about mushrooms? I was never taught it in school.
No, and that's the weird thing too. It's like a total outlier. It's so much different than everything else, and we just totally take it for granted. We're just like, oh yeah, it's a mushroom thing. What, it's a vegetable or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a super plant. It's a super organism. I'm convinced that it's an alien species that has impregnated the planet.
I think so. But I don't. And apparently that there's a certain amount of evidence to kind of support that case that at a certain point you can't find an evolutionary history behind. I guess I don't know if it's psilocybin or certain genetic structures of the mushroom or its molecular composition. In other words, like, we do know that meteorites bring life and comets bring life in some sort of fashion. So why would you be surprised that it's an actual maybe form of intelligence? Maybe not, but maybe.
Well, shit, and then you can go even further down the rabbit hole with the stoned ape theory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if that's true, then we were, colonized by an alien species that, like, supercharged these chimps' brains to be able to, communicate and then I don't know what's going on when you're on mushrooms. Maybe you're communicating with the combined consciousness of the mushroom. Who knows?
Well, I mean, if there's one common experience everybody has when they use mushrooms, or psilocybin mushrooms, is that they attest to feeling more connected with the nature around them, and their surroundings, like in a living sense.
Yeah.
The tree becomes more alive, the colors are more vibrant. We know what's happening in the eyes when you're on mushrooms, but the idea that you can look at a tree and see that it's alive because it's alive. But when you're not in that state of mind, that psychedelic experience, you totally, especially in an urban environment like New York City, what the fuck do you think about trees? If you start talking about trees, somebody's gonna start telling you you're fucking crazy. Why are you fucking talking about trees? We're in New York City, there's no tree. Just get like upset and angry at you because you're talking about trees, but no nature connection, at all. And when you remove that from humans in the first place without mushrooms, you're so far away from like a real positive state of being, I think.
Yeah.
And now if you can be in that positive state of being and then go to another level or a better, higher level of understanding, optimal mushroom integration, connect, just like humans have been doing since pre-Egyptian civilization. And so the idea is that who is it? I can't think of this is going to come, Einstein. The pre-Egyptian civilization there in Africa, the super... This is driving me crazy. They're the mushroom civilization. Have you heard that?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of things about mushrooms too, like Christianity being... Have you heard about that theory?
Yeah, just say it.
The spiritual... What is it? The spiritual... it's a book, but it basically just says that the whole religion of Christianity is based off of the mushroom, and even to the point where the translation for what the word mushroom was is actually like Christ, and that's we took it and made it into this person, and then they have like a bunch of weird Christian art with like halos that are the really old ones, the halos that look like mushroom caps, and then some of the like rituals within like Christmas and stuff, like hanging, your stockings over the fireplace, and putting treats in there, which is like how you would dry mushrooms if you were wanting to prepare them, and like all sorts of just like crazy, and and then the psilocybin mushroom has the green and red cap, the same colors as Christmas and stuff.
That's the Amanita muscaria mushroom, the
that's the Amanita muscaria,
which actually is actually legal and to grow, and they're really cool, and I think that they can grow multiple feet, 2-3 feet tall if you get a certain kind, and they look awesome. But I'm pretty sure in the original Alice in Wonderland movie, that's the mushroom she takes a big giant chunk off of and eats before she goes in the rabbit hole. But supposedly, you have to drink the piss of somebody who eats it because it's the human liver that metabolizes it into the actual psychedelic chemical. And so
is that the only way it works, or does that just amplify it? I've heard.
Yeah. I think that's probably what it does, amplify it. But so many people do it where they make a tea or some sort of brew or eat it, and they don't really get much from it. And then I'm sure, I don't know, you probably know someone who got something from it, I guess.
Yeah, no, I actually I don't have much personal experience with it. I'm more of an academic. I did have some friends who had their first experience a few weeks ago, and that was an interesting. I mean, it was good listening to them. They did very like small doses, so it was very mild. But
yeah,
it's something that is definitely going to be a talking point in the future, and that will be when that discussion starts being had. I'll feel really good about where we're at. But then again, if 5 years ago you said, what are the odds of marijuana being legalized for recreational use anywhere in the U.S.? I probably would have said no freaking way,
Yeah.
And we just did that. So that's the cool thing. I'm sure you're Singularity guy, right?
Yeah, of course.
And well, the thing that I always like to think about now too is the technology is obviously progressing, and that technology is creating this connection. And so, like from a social perspective, we're able to communicate so much more effortlessly. And so, the thing that I'm interested in now is how fast these cultural evolutions will happen when we have this hyper connection. You know, maybe it would have taken 50 years back when, you know, before the internet, for an idea to matriculate enough and mature enough and you know, kind of take hold into society. Whereas now, if it gets introduced, it gets spread within a couple weeks or something when the connection is that tight.
Yeah.
So like, and then this like really obvious consensus is made very quickly because of the sophistication of how everyone is able to talk to each other. So maybe we'll just start picking up really bad, you know, gay rights next year, like everyone, gay rights is good. Then we'll move on to, you know, the mushrooms and psychedelics and.
It'll be instantaneous, right? If we could if all your opinions are online right now, and everyone has to fucking pay attention.
And be honest. Be honest.
Yeah, it's no way. Then you're right. Then all of a sudden, I think that we would get. It takes off just like we've talked about, like an exponential, like you're in that curve, like with technology, too. And it does take off, and it is taking off because of Twitter and things like this too. But if we could all just really, like we said, and then we're all connected. Everyone knows what you're thinking, like you said. I do not know anyone other than people that I don't know. I really don't know anyone that says, no, don't let people choose who they can have sex with. Like, I've not met people like that. They don't, and then when they say it, it's been a while, I'm saying.
Yeah.
But like these younger, I guess I should
younger
be clear.
People, yeah.
There's younger kids. They're not being raised the same way. They're not being raised with some of the same bullshit. So there's not, to them it's like, why isn't marijuana legal? Why are people concerned about gay? Like, why aren't they able to? And they don't trust the government. And I don't know how you are. I'm 34. I'm about to be 35. So I feel like I'm getting old and wise. But I worked at a college for a while, and I was hanging out with, and I was working with like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And they're different, and it's great because of Facebook and Twitter. Like, they don't get some of the bullshit that I had to deal with. Like, they're like, what the fuck? But, you know, it's just, we're talking about 10 years different or so. But that's huge when you have the internet involved. So I'm just saying, that's a huge point. I think we were talking about that before. It does take off. You're able to connect, and we all realize that, guess what? We want gay people to realize that they're humans. They're just like us and everyone else. No one is really choosing from birth who they want to have sex with.
They are, and who cares?
And if they are, who cares? Exactly.
Yeah,
it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter. And then that's
space,
online.
Like,
so that's filed.
Bump their parts together or something. Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah. I mean,
it's filed. See, it's in a database that the three of us, don't give a fuck. You should all be able to do what you want. And then guess what? How many more people are thinking that way?
Yeah.
There's a lot. But they don't really speak up. A lot of them don't. These young guys don't speak up.
Well, what if the Singularity was the day in which every human being did 5 grams of mushrooms at the same time?
Yeah, why not? We should have one of those once a year.
I think that is the definition of a singularity, because nobody can intelligently say what would happen to society if something like that were to happen.
You're totally right. And it's funny you say that, because
that is right.
That is the point, is that when you have like complexity theory and chaos theory, like I use these two things in the master thesis I wrote, is that you're going to have systematized order that comes out of these crazy complex interactions that you could in no way have ever imagined. No way. And in a certain sense, that's, if you can understand just that basic premise, then you don't really need a lot of evidence to totally get how life evolved on the planet. because it was random interactions of a sort. You know, like it's not. There doesn't need to be an engineer up top making sure people are doing certain things certain ways so I can get a certain outcome.
Yeah.
And same thing with the universe. So, you know, shit happens, and sometimes the shit makes life on a planet. I mean, whatever. And sometimes singularity is going to happen, and what? And then your paper dot. And see, then that comes back to the money issue. Now the people who have not been out there creating and then being rewarded with something because of that creation, the people who are their whole life is an obsession to hoard fake pieces of paper built on promises from the world's biggest corrupt mafia organization. It's all gonna fall down. It's all going to break. It will not sustain. It's unsustainable. When that happens, oh shit, you know, Singularity is going to be part of that destroyer. It's going to destroy the healthcare industry too. This has been a thing that I mean,
I just don't think that so many government, whatever we define as government right now, is in a rudimentary term post Singularity.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be like looking at the social habits of insects or something like that. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
But I think I'd say that it's already rudimentary because it's Bronze Age technology. Like, it's not something that makes sense for conscious understanding human beings.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think we are at a place right now where we do have the technology to kind of liberate a lot of resources and distribute them pretty well across our population. But we have this, like, you know, the old. Well, so here's a counterpoint. So the Singularity sounds great, and obviously part of that is going to be aging will go out the door, and people are going to live for indefinitely as long as they don't get hit by a bus. And I guess my question from that is, like, obviously right now a lot of the problems that we're seeing are from old people that work the way that, you know, they are made for the world that they grew up in, and they're, like, still, you know, keeping their hands into the, you know, they don't want to let go. Like, that's why it's not changing fast enough for us, at least. Whereas we see it's like the obvious next thing. And when they die, I mean, in the next, 20 years, like, a lot of these old people are going to be gone. It makes room for young people with, new ideas and open to new things and products of the current world and not the past. So the question is, like, when do we become dinosaurs? Like, at some point, like, I know my integration into the Singularity, I'm going to have some arbitrary line that my kid is going to laugh at me for.
Yeah.
He's like, Dad, why don't you just, like, look into the hive mind all day long? And I'll be like, no, I like to be individual for a little bit. And he's like, ugh, you're such an old man,
Yeah, that could... Obviously, that's possible, and it seems like that's the momentum of the average person, or that's pretty normal. But I've also met a lot of really old people, and for whatever reason, I have a very just comfortable, and I enjoy being around really old people. Like, I love hearing the stories, especially if they're nice and cool. And I've been around a lot that, because they were so far outside of technology at that late in life to integrate that with the way their brain's been processing. I get that, but it's going to be different, I think, with us having been in technology already and the internet and computing by the time we get to that age. But I've met a lot at that age who still had amazing thinking abilities of being a free thinker, being an open-minded thinker, having good critical thinking skills and reasoning, and that can bring an idea that's just as awesome as anyone else who was 18, 30, 40. And I just think that type of thinking and that type of person was never promoted, ever, in American society in particular, because we needed people to move widgets and put widgets in and out. We never taught critical thinking, and I teach a course on critical thinking, and it's fascinating how not a single person over all these years has ever said they were taught critical thinking in any form or fashion, ever. And
I think that's one of the hugest problems that we have with our education system right now is there's so many things that we're teaching, like memorization and very technical things. Those are fine, but I think school needs to be a lot more based off of these soft skills and, giving you tools as opposed, very general tools that are applicable to, all of life.
Yeah.
I wish I was taught how to avoid bias correctly.
Right.
Like, this is something that we're gonna have a lot of problems with. Like, internet's great and everything, but it also lets me completely curate everything that I'm getting. So if I love, Ron Paul and libertarians, and all I do online is look at libertarians, the confirmation bias is going to put me in a place where I'm having a skewed view of the overall picture. And if you are able to teach kids at a young age, like, hey, you're going to have ideas. If you want it to be fully formed and educated, you need to educate yourself on both sides of both sides of the field and make a judgment call. That needs to happen. I don't know. I don't know.
It is happening. I think that's a good point. It's funny how Howard. I don't know how old you are. You seem almost my age. I'll just say you look 20-ish. I'll say you look like a nice 17-year-old young man. That's good though, right? To look young. You should look young as long as we can. So, and why not? When we go to Singularity, give me the fucking robot body. I want to look good too. Like, I want it all. I want to be able to run and fly. Let's do that shit. But with like the way you're thinking, the way we're thinking, guess what? I have 2 kids, and like I totally chose to just. And you have to do something different. And I think it's evolution and all that too that we're talking about, where it's totally different than the way I was raised, but it's not like a rebellion thing. It's more of knowledge. It's just like, you have science teaches you new things. You have to change your mind. You have to do things different. So my kids are being raised so different, and they don't even understand racism. They don't even get that shit. Whereas my dad, that's all he was, and his dad, I still have to hear it from his dad. Like, it's weird. But it's still, racism's only alive because of people that are from a long time ago still talking stupid shit. Just like, and then people that still think like it's the 1960s, when really, if you look at it with technology, it's more like the year 2090 to me. That's what, it's not 2013. We should be able, if there was a way to measure time with evolution and technology that's helped it, then it's not the same as 1960 mentality. It's not just 40, 50 years ago.
It's light years.
It is. It's light years. It really is.
It's funny too, because I think another component of all this, like say the racism, is it's also a thing of people thinking that they can find an identity or become more accepted by being like these other racist people.
Yeah.
Which means that person has not learned one of the most important lessons in life, is that you can only find value in your own self. And if you can find it in your own self, to love yourself, to like yourself as the person you are, period, well then you don't have to worry about racism and shit and trying to be something you're not, and making up stories and living a life you don't live. But once again, that comes with critical thinking, because now I have to start taking responsibility too, though. Because now I'm just me.
Yeah, no. So I got a question for you. I'm curious. What do you, you're kind of versed in some of the Sam Harris stuff, so what's your opinion on free will?
What would, if we're just going to get into more philosophical talk, what does it mean to not have free will?
So I guess at its base, you'd be saying that there is a, at the moment of the Big Bang, there was a predefined mathematical expression that is going to happen, and the universe is that expression. We don't know what the equation is, but it is predetermined. We live in a deterministic universe where we actually have zero effect, or zero decision making abilities. So everything is literally a product of its circumstances, and all the way back to the Big Bang. So I didn't choose where to be born, which my parents didn't choose where to be born, which we didn't choose to have the comet with the mushrooms come impregnate our planet. Like everything is totally mechanical, and the illusion that we have this choice in our lives is kind of irrelevant.
Well, I guess then the question is, if that's actually the case and it's purely mechanical, like it becomes something that just can't be a black and white thing in the end, because the mechanical nature of it, if that's the case, still at its root is a novelty creating engine in the universe. In other words, things don't stay the same. It's like the equation itself is change and novelty and destruction and rebirth and universes colliding and all this shit happening. So you could obviously have some sort of algorithm that produces something like that, I guess, and still be creating novel, interactions and creations. And so then you get to the point of like intelligence, I guess, and whether or not there's a conscious intelligence in a human being that can actually choose. And if you just simply assume that it's deterministic, I guess, can you just ask the question, is it possible to think that you have a choice? Yes or no?
Then it totally is, and I think that's if you believe in a deterministic world, then you think that's the explanation for free will.
Yeah, and I would say that I think it's almost like it's both. For instance, it's similar to the way like neural connections in the brain can get hardwired over time, and it almost makes a person incapable of processing outside of this hardwiring because of their daily actions are the same day in and day out and day in and day out. In a certain way, that does control their reality, and then the people around them doing the same thing day in and day out, well, that controls their reality. And if they're not purposely saying, me, whatever this consciousness is, I want to create this. I want to have this passion. I want to meet this goal. I want to have this kind of relationship. I want to be this kind of person. Where you're trying to make some sort of conscious, understanding about your actions, then you start creating your reality. And not in a woo-woo sense, just in a practical sense. And so
I totally agree. I just think, the argument for the deterministic place is that those patterns of thought in your brain are there because of your experiences every day. So, maybe if you do decide you grew up in this terrible neighborhood and you decide, I'm gonna rise above this and I'm gonna help people and I'm gonna start my own business that does that, and you make that decision. That decision could have been, it's obviously made up of a million different circumstances, but if we're to simplify it, then it would be because my mother, when I was young, encouraged me and read me this book. It was extrapolated.
Yeah, and epigenetics and all these other... So in other words, it's like, yes, you can look back, whatever that means, into the past, which is kind of like, it's a literal fog, really, it seems like. But if there's an actual past, and it's like a physical like mapping of some sort of all these interactions and things that happen, or some sort of code, it's like you can look back and go, hey, all these codes and all this shit, it did work together, and that's what made me here at this moment, like this one slice of time. But then there's going to be another slice of time, and another slice of time, and another slice of time, where you're going to be looking back to see that, but no one's ever been able to look forward and predict it with any type of accuracy, you know.
So I would slightly disagree with that.
Well, maybe, yeah, I don't know. Tell me, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, so we might not be perfect at predicting the future, but we're still on a rudimentary level able to make a pretty good guess of where we're going to be. Like, I know 5 minutes from now, we're probably going to still be talking at this moment. And obviously, my gaze into the future is a lot less accurate than my immediate past. Maybe not my far past. I don't know. It kind of comes down to the bandwidth of our brains. And, we live in this current moment, and we can remember a little bit back, and we can remember a tiny bit forward based on our, how much RAM we have running. But maybe if we upgrade that RAM, we'll both be able to have a clearer picture of the background, and then obviously formulate a more accurate representation of the future too.
Well, I think there's also a problem of language and words, because like in English we have words for past and future, but if you look at like the Hopi tribe, they had no word for future and no word for past. Everything was present in the moment. So now their reality in no way can be compared to the reality we share with the words we're using, which then goes back into the McKenna concept that, makes a lot of sense the more you see it in action and try to think about it, is that words are the creators of our present day reality. And that goes into actual critical thinking. So when you go to grammar, rhetoric, and logic, like a classical education model, you're learning words and their meanings and how to use them. And if you can do that and someone else can't, I'm a wizard. Like, I literally have mind control over somebody else. And I can manipulate them. And I can manipulate the reality with my words. And that's why labels like race, they work really good because they manipulate people really good, even though it's not even real. Race is not real. It's not real, but it's used.
I love contemplating the power of words. It blows my mind. Have you heard of the tribe that has different words or a different representation of colors, and they can see on a spectrum of color that like nobody else can, just because their language is so different?
What?
Now, where is that?
That's interesting.
Crap. Let's see here.
It
I
might
can
be
bring it
eating
up.
a lot of mushrooms, though, too. Well, you have synesthesia, so, where you can kind of, you see, like, musical notes can be seen as color.
Yeah.
And so, actually, I've diagnosed myself with misophonia, and that's, like, a neurological condition where you're, like, you go to fight or flight primal status when people are, like, smacking gum and chewing too loud and slurping their drinks too much. And the only reason I was thinking about that, because when I was reading it, it's connected to synesthesia in humans, which is a natural condition, but magic mushrooms, induce synesthesia as well. And I always, when it comes down to perceptions of reality, we have to accept that it's a fallacy to think that any other human being sees reality in any way exactly like we see it.
No, yeah, and to go back on the language thing too, I saw a recent article that was talking about how certain languages affect your personality.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I just think, and so this is the one thing that I thought about too, is like, if that's true, what language should I be learning that is the most rewarding state of mind to be able to operate in?
What if it's the psychedelic language?
It big boy, that's Mexican right there, man. That's Mexican.
Well,
It's gotta be Spanish.
McKenna would talk about
Mexican people go
learning the psychedelic language, and that when him and his brother, Dennis, went down to Peru for the first time, so they didn't even eat food. I don't know if you saw the Dennis McKenna podcast on Rogan, but I guess he has a book to explain it all, and I've heard some lectures from McKenna talking about all they ate were mushrooms for like 2 weeks. Mushroom soups, mushroom salads. But he goes on in really great detail, and it's always fun to listen to him anyway, regardless of whether or not what you think of it. It's entertaining, but the detail of the psychedelic language. Well, if you've never been in a mind-blowing psychedelic realm, you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, it's totally insane. It's literally like experiencing the singularity before and after. Because when I've been to like another dimension, and it's not a dream where when you wake up from a dream, you know it was a dream. When you come back from the psychedelic experience, you literally have integrated an actual experience. However it works in your brain, one way or another. And that's so altering. And so when you talk about the hardwiring and the determinism, anyone who says that that's true, I want to hear them say that after they've done the 5-gram mushroom trip. And then come back to me and tell me it's deterministic. Because I just gave you the red pill and proved to you that in a way it is. You are proven, I think, when you have the heavy psychedelic experience, that it is deterministic if you let it be. But if you choose, in a way you can choose to accept that it is a game of sort, so it is deterministic, you can be carried on by other people's momentum without doing really anything, but you can also break free of all that and be your actual self, the person who matters, the person who counts, the person who can create and express and love and, all that. Yeah.
No, yeah, and have you, I guess to go back onto the psychedelics, or back to the psychedelics, have you read some of the recent things too that they've shown that, for a long time they thought if you ingest psychedelics you're going to get like enhanced brain activity, but what they found is actually it's lowered.
Yeah, like certain parts basically almost get turned off. And
and
a lot of it.
That was on Reason, actually. There's a Reason on magic mushrooms.
Yeah, I just tweeted that out today, actually.
Shuts down the area that's usually dealing with depression.
Yeah, in the depression case, and that's the John Hopkins study too, with MAPS and anyone. I don't know if you're familiar with MAPS, Multidisciplinary Association for the Study of Psychedelic Studies. At MAPS News on Twitter, highly recommended. They're one of my favorite organizations. But Rick Doblin and them sponsor all that research. But with the mushroom, people talk about part of the brain too that's being diminished is the one responsible for ego. And so that's why when you go on the psychedelic mushroom trip, all of a sudden you start to see yourself for who you actually are, not for who you've always pretended to be. And that's why people have bad trips. Because if you're an actual asshole, but you've never confronted that you're an asshole, and you do a lot of mushrooms, you do a good dose, you will see the asshole and it will be terrifying. Good thing.
I think I liked the metaphor of it, kind of stripping away of your filter.
Yeah, exactly.
Our brains, to be able to operate in this very mechanical world that we've created where, we need to survive and run away from the cheetahs and make as many babies as possible, and then when you remove that filter for this very sober state of mind and put yourself in a place where you're able to take in, so much more of what your brain is being bombarded on, and like that is what that state is. And obviously it is harder to like make babies and protect, run from the tiger if you're on mushrooms. But we don't really have to worry about that anymore.
It's actually easier to make babies when you're mushroom because it increases
maybe
sexual desire.
Maybe babies.
Yeah.
Maybe babies.
And if you're hunting at night, it's going to help you to hunt at night because it increases visual acuity. So you can see better at night too. But once again, you're talking about proper dosing as well. So, people who are prohibitionists are really good at the art of exaggeration or the art of extremes. And so they'll bring in something like, well, what if? I'm like, well, what if is the dumbest argument a human being can bring to the table. If we're just talking like possibilities, bring what ifs all day because I love what ifs. But if you're trying to use that as your argument for why you're going to literally kidnap a human being and put him into like this cage, like you're totally insane. You're a
no,
psychopath.
I mean, I look at everything like a tool, man. Like you can figure out how to utilize something to benefit yourself, and you know, and you can also use it to destroy yourself. So like,
and sometimes if you use something to try to destroy yourself, or you're doing things that are destructive, and you do not actually end up destroying yourself, those kind of people tend to say those experiences were the most important experiences of their life. And they would never have changed anything in their past. Like, you can fuck up and learn from your mistakes. That's human, and actually that's a human right. People need to fuck up every now and then and know what it's like to maybe need to struggle for once in their life. Or maybe you don't have it together and you finally found it out and someone let you know that you're full of shit, you know, or that you're an asshole. Like, get it the fuck together. Maybe you just need to go to Tulum and never come back. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
That's what I want.
Just go off the grid and snorkel and
dude,
all day long.
You're not gonna want to come back. You really aren't.
Dude, we
7
totally...
days is too short. It's not long enough.
Yeah.
You're gonna want 14 days at least. At least.
It's going to be good to be away from my day job too. So
I had a great conversation with... Oh, yeah, which, by the way, I wanted to ask you about your business in particular. Is this your first kind of entrepreneurial venture, or what's...
Yeah, no, it is for sure. I mean, I've worked at a number of different companies, all the way from like the 5-man startup without air conditioning to like the Boulder, trendy, up and coming 50-person company, and then for the past 4 years, I've been working at a big old corporate ad agency. We do email marketing, and it's you know, it pays the bills and is not super intellectually demanding, so I can have enough energy to come home or you know, spend time on my own thing or before going in or something like that. So yeah, this is my first thing I've started, and it's kind of a little bit of a conglomeration of everything that I've learned from all my different companies. And I guess the biggest, and so this is kind of goes back to what you're saying, is like going through like tough times or doing things that are maybe not fun. You can definitely take things from them. And you know, one of the worst things about my day job is that I have to, you know, spend all of my day, all my money and time, you know, putting an ad out so that somebody gets their $1 off coupon at Wendy's or something, right? Which is like, oh, what am I doing? Like, you know, like it's so soul sucking. But having that pain, like, let me come up with the idea of being like, all right, well, how could I make it so brands that want to, you know, advertise to people, they can use that advertising money, and that advertising money can be actually put to good use. And so I was like, all right, well, that, you know, there it is. They'll be a sponsor. They sponsor the charity, and then also it's better. It's PR and marketing. You know, like they're coming off philanthropic, but they're also getting an audience, and they're spending their marketing dollar to benefit charity. So
yeah, that's such an awesome idea. What? And so the Twitter for the business is what?
It's Join Altruist. Altruist is the brand. So yeah, at Join Altruist and joinaltruist.com. And it's we're just started the second month, so a new charity each month. And yeah, it's been pretty cool. I mean, slow and steady growth. I kind of think right now it's like I'm making the snowball. Hopefully it'll get big enough pretty soon so I can push it down the thing and it can kind of be self-sustaining. But slow and steady, I guess. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I think that's the whole, like, as you do entrepreneurial ventures, which some reason or another, I couldn't help but do, like, as a little kid, had a paper route at 6 years old, and I had my own candy store in elementary, just underground style. We got shut down by the principal, you know, all this shit, but I was making money, selling shit, selling flaming hots and lemonades. Anyway, my point is, though, is once you start doing that, and especially as you've been I mean, it seems obvious that you're you know that you have ability and intelligence, and you know that you can do these things. You probably have known for a long time as you're working for these other people, you're like, and maybe they did appreciate you, so maybe you were in the best case scenario, and you know, you got paid what you thought you were worth and all that, but in reality, you're probably always seeing other people like at different levels going, dude, I can totally do all this shit. I could totally be having a business just like this. I could run this, but that decision and this and that, and now you're at the point of the creation, and you get to see the results of these independent, non-determined, well, I mean, maybe they're deterministic, but it's non-deterministic to you, and it's awesome. I love that, like, the feeling and those connections that you get when you're giving those people something they really want, or, you know, like the advertising budget. My brother-in-law runs an ad agency here in Texas. It's funny, actually, I'm going to have to hook him up with you. He's on Twitter. I think it's Create the Bridge, but I'll hook you up. And super cool dude. I mean, he's 22, right? 22? I know he's like our little entrepreneurial 23. Project. We've been training him since he was like 10 years old. But same thing, you know, and we always have these conversations about, let's make a real connection. So this company wants to market, they want a website, and they want graphic design. You know, let's do something real and authentic. And I think that it's such an awesome thing what you're doing with the business. I mean, I think it's perfect. It's ideal. So what's your goal going forward with it? I mean, over time.
I mean, the biggest thing is the other main part of like that kind of got the whole idea started was that, you know, I was fresh out of school, not making a ton of money, young, you know, like not saving any money. And I didn't really feel like, I didn't have enough money to like donate to a cause and feel like I was doing anything, you know, other than putting some change in the donation pile or something like that. But it was frustrating. And then even if I did want to donate, I was like, well, who do I donate to? I read all these stories about how these charities are ineffective and my dollars being put to, you know, pay for a new studio in New York City so they can, you know, take some, or, you know, host parties or something, you know, all these terrible things. So it was kind of like a daunting task, and basically I just didn't do anything with charity. And so what I wanted to do is make it super easy for people to donate, and obviously utilize the crowd too. Right now, obviously, it's small, and I'm only asking to donate $1, but I only asked to donate $1 on purpose because it's like I want, you know, to get 1 million people donating $1. And then it's like almost nothing to everybody, but we've all made a commitment to do it, and we can actually make some like massive change. So yeah, that's the idea. First goal, get 1 million people, so that I'd be in $1 million in donations to every new charity. And you know, like I said, it's the whole idea is that I wanted to make a company that was like pure positivity. So I make it easy for people to donate, and you know, and get the good spread. You know, a new charity each month too. So that's very curated. I go through like a rating system and make sure that they're high quality charities, and then a bunch of different fields, so it's not just your one charity that you donate to your whole life. So you get a varied approach, and then you know, the charity, they don't get charged anything. It's just free publicity for them and free donations. You know, if you're doing great stuff and you're getting high ratings, good. You know, so I'll give them all the money, and hopefully it will incentivize other charities to be better, and so that they could be featured as well. So it's like creating a new incentive.
That's really awesome, because you're inspiring competition between charities, which it should be. Like, you should compete to be the fucking coolest, awesome charity that is actually doing stuff that's not like committing fraud. Because that's one thing that comes to mind for most people is like, well, you know, I'll give to who I choose to give to, or I'll give to, you know, because I don't know if I can trust this and that. Where's my dollar going? So that's cool. Like, that'd be, I guess, on your website where you have a way, you said you're going to show, like, you know, what, who these people are and why they have great reviews, and this is why you've chosen them. I mean, that to me makes it convenient. So, because like I don't want to go do all the research. I don't want to go look and see which charity isn't an asshole and which one's not.
Yeah, no, and right now the kind of the interesting thing is, like, since I'm doing everything by myself, I'm basically using other platforms to, you know, bring them all together and work for me. So like I do social and I do email, but like I don't have big overhead for my website. Like I'm a designer and I know front end code, so I did the whole thing, and I'm just using using Twitter, using Facebook, using Google Plus. Like that's my way of connecting with my people. And I can send email too, because that's my day job. So I did get something from that, right?
Dude, I used to, and as a captain, real quick, I used to work for a professional direct marketer. Like, I know all about it.
Oof. Yeah, brutal. But yeah, and then for the rating system right now, there's a nonprofit called charitynavigator.org, and they do a really cool job at like choosing charities and rating them. Based on all of their tax information, and looks at their overhead and how successful their fundraising campaigns are, and what goals they're meeting. And I mean, I definitely think that there's not a 4-star rated, their best rating, the 4-star rated charity of theirs that's screwing things up. So that's kind of V1, and someday I'd love to. I'm a big economics nerd. I'm a big, I'm like physics. I like, all these weird things, statistics, big data, everything like that. So long-term goal, yeah, I'd love to like get a group of experts from all over the place and figure out, my own algorithm or strategy for making the most effective use of the dollar on a monthly basis. So, but that's a ways down the road.
What did you go to university, or what did you study, or?
So I never took high school seriously at all.
High school sucks.
It's funny how many.
I hate high school.
How many like ultra intelligent people never took any of that stuff serious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got like a 2.0 GPA. I just scooted by. My parents, like, I just did the bare minimum. Like, I went to class most of the time, but more interested in drinking and hanging out with girls until I got in trouble, and then kind of had to dial it back. But no, after that, I just went. I didn't have a GPA or anything, so I just went to DeVry University. And I thought I was going to get into software. I was like, I'll be a coder. And I went like 3/4 through the BA program there, and then we had like a guest speaker come in and talk to us about everything he'd been doing the past 10 years with our degree, and I was like, oh shit, I'm in the wrong place. So I like went to the counselor's room. I was like, I'm dropping out. Went into design and went to Art Institute for a little while, and then and then I was doing like their graphic program and a little front end web code and stuff like that, and I didn't graduate, but got what I wanted out of it. So I'm a complete dropout. I have no degree.
It's awesome, yeah.
Whatsoever.
But it's so true though that I say this to students all the time, that if you're here because you think your piece of paper at the end is going to make a difference, you're not at the right place, and you're going to waste a lot of money in the process. Because the paper doesn't matter, and especially doesn't matter because in the end, it's one line on a resume anyway. Like, if you can do something, the best people just want that. They don't want anything else. So get the job done, fuck, you're hired. Get the job done.
Yeah, there's definitely a few, I mean, if you're a doctor, you got to get your degree. But if we're working in the web here, like, there's no reason that you need that piece of paper.
Where are we at? I can't see.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. How much? How long have we gone?
About 8 minutes.
Oh, that's all I got?
52. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. I'm limited on my recording thing to 2 hours.
Oh, gotcha.
I forgot to set up a little timer here, so I was just double checking, because when I talked to Thomas, have you talked Thomas O'Brien on Twitter? And
yeah.
I'm going to put his podcast up I'm gonna have to solve this with you because I just need to do overlay of like your video and his video into my video, and I don't have a native program, so I just gotta get the program. But we were talking for over 2 hours. I think it was almost 3 hours, and the whole time the camera was dead. Everything was dead.
Man.
And my backup recording didn't work either, so we had to do it a second time. Anyway, and no, but about on the business side, I mean, my point is that, you know, to me, the most important aspect of university is education. And by the way, you can get a Stanford education on the internet for free. You can get a Princeton education on the internet for free if you choose to put the time and effort to educate yourself. That's it.
No, yeah, I think like I said, I never cared about learning, but actually after I dropped out, I started wanting to learn. So yeah, I spend a ton of time. You know, I look like I feel like I've been in school between work and, you know, all my free time reading and, you know, between podcasts and audiobooks and you know, articles and YouTube videos and, you know, just the countless amount of shit out there. Yeah, I've gotten more education in the past 2 years than I did my whole, you know, whole life pretty much.
Isn't that awesome? And it shows the power, and there's a lot of research on this too, with children, the power of letting someone educate themselves in something they want to be educated in. In other words,
I'm sure they could learn so much more.
Exactly. In other words, look, there's 3 magazines I've always got coming in for information, and now, I mean, they're all on the tablet now, and it's Wired, The Economist, and Reason, and I just like that as a base. I mean, I bring in a lot of other stuff too, for sure, but as a base, I like that, their perspectives. And Wired's cover story, the current issue, is about this school in Mexico just across the border, and my wife has family like not very far away in the ranch, and I've been down there, very familiar with it. This school's on a garbage dump, and it smells like shit in the school all day long. There's one computer in the whole school, so they teach computers with poster board. They bring in a poster board and say, this is a keyboard. You press these buttons and it types something on this screen, you know, it's another poster board. And so this 32-year-old teacher, you know, over the course of, this would have been last summer, I think, in the past year or two, I don't know how, it didn't explain, he just woke up and said, what are we doing? Like, this school, no one's being educated, everyone's failing everything, everyone's far behind, our system's decrepit and corrupt. What can we do to solve this? So he just started doing research. He started reading shit, going online, going on the internet, and he found that it seemed like letting kids teach themselves is the optimal way for anyone to learn. Well, guess what? I think it was 5th grade. He set that kind of environment up. So when they were teaching maths, he would just give them the problems. He wouldn't even try to teach them. And they would get into small groups, and they would teach themselves. And he said they went, well, I mean, the whole story is deep. Long story short, that class, one of the students now is the highest scoring math student in Mexico. Period. Math genius level. 5 other students scored 99.9 percentile that was getting 1 question wrong. And that's out of a class of like 20-something students. And that was over the course of 1 year of this unique, just autonomous, self-directed learning style without authority, without force. And what's happened is, and I don't know if, you know, there's deeper, we don't even have time to go into all these stories, but most people, children, if they don't take school serious at any, you know, later on in life, it's because at some point, usually earlier, they were never encouraged to just be curious and learn about things they want to learn. Like, in other words, forced. You're forced to learn math this way. You were forced to read these books. You didn't even fucking read them. And so then you just turn it off. And people turn it off. And that's where our education system is failing miserably. But I think it's changing.
It is slowly but surely. I think, there's a ton of new education stuff going on right now. Khan Academy was a big one too. Yeah, and I've heard of some other. I think it's called like One School or something like that, where they do a catered learning process where they still have a curriculum, but they put kids in like 4 different environments. So it's either like the lecture environment, small group, one-on-one tutoring, or self-paced learning individually on a computer or something like that. And then they like give them the curriculum, they test out all these different methods, then they like see what works, and then they adjust accordingly, and then suddenly they're like learning the way that they're supposed to be learning, and their scores are going out off the charts too. So yeah, I mean, technology's definitely got to be making a huge influence in education starting real soon.
Okay. The stalker showed up.